Louis Longoria again here with Garage Game Day Sports. I want to talk my college football playoff rankings. The college football playoff rankings, the second edition of them, will be released later today. I'm giving you my thoughts as to where I think the top 6 teams will land. Not a whole lot of deviation from last week, with the exception of course, Michigan State's upset at the hands of Purdue, who seem to be giant killers. So Ohio State better watch out this week. Number 1, of course, we got to start Georgia. No surprise, 43-6 winners over Missouri, dominated both sides of the ball. They don't give up. It seems like they don't give up any points. The Bulldogs got JT Daniels back, so they were able to get him going. They're just the clear favorites right now. They're just playing head and shoulders above everyone else. And Stetson Bennett threw a couple of touchdowns also in this game. They're just able to get it going on both sides of the ball. They're the most reliable, most consistent of all the teams that we've seen. And they have their flaws too. They're not perfect by any means, but just what we've been able to see from the Bulldogs, just so much more consistent, so much more reliable. What you see is what you get from the Bulldogs. No off days. I mean, look at their last 6 games. 2 shutouts. They gave up 6 to Missouri, 7 to Florida. Only gave up 13 to Kentucky and 10 to Auburn, and both of those in blowout wins. So that defense is just dominating. And their last 3 games, of course, very winnable. At Tennessee, they host Charleston Southern, and then they get Georgia Tech in the annual game at the end of the year before the SEC championship game. They'll be overwhelming favorites in every single one of those games. The Bulldogs just got it going. They're the clear number ones, and until somebody knocks them off that pedestal, and hell, even with a loss, they'd probably still be in the playoff. So the Bulldogs clear number 1. Number 2, it's got to be Alabama. A lot of teams had golden opportunities to make an impression on the committee. So many teams struggled, Alabama included. They needed a last-second defensive stop to hold off LSU. They won 20-14. But so many other teams around them struggled. So Alabama keeps their spot at number 2. They're on course for that collision with Georgia in the SEC championship game. And I don't really see anything else getting in their way. I mean, you've got Auburn in the Iron Bowl in a couple of weeks, but Alabama's going to be a favorite in that game as well. So you can't really say Bama's gonna struggle anywhere, or if they're gonna lose anywhere. And even if they do, if it comes in the SEC championship game, I made a quick video about this on Saturday evening. I think if they lose in a close game, they're going to be the first 2-loss team to make the college football playoff. If they lose and it's a touchdown game or a late field goal gives it to Georgia or something like that, Bama's in. So get ready for it now. Alabama, just what they're doing right now, they're playing, they struggled, but that offense is finding itself. 41, or they gave up 41 A&M. They scored 38 in that game. 49 on the road to Mississippi State. 52 against Tennessee in a game. They struggled there for a while as well. But I just like Alabama right now. They've got the pedigree. They've got the experience. They've got the quarterback. They've got the defense. The Crimson Tide, they're just on a collision course with Georgia right now. And I don't see that changing. I don't see them losing to Auburn. Auburn looked very flat against Texas A&M today. They only scored 3 points in that game. And it's the Iron Bowl. You never know what can happen. But Alabama's going to be a big favorite there and in the rest of their games. Number 3, I've got Oregon. They struggled as well. 26-16 winners over Washington. And, the Huskies typically play the Ducks pretty tough. And it's a Pac-12 opponent. You never know what can happen in the Pac-12. But the Pac-12's got a bad habit of kind of eating itself right now. Oregon's got 1 loss, but everyone else around them has at least 2 or 3 losses. In losses in total, everyone's got at least 3. So the Pac-12's not really doing themselves any favors when it comes to helping boost Oregon's resume. Oregon's not really going to have the resume even with a Pac-12 championship win. So they've got to keep winning. Winning the Pac-12, as a 1-loss team would put them in prime position for the top 4, but outside of number 4 and number 3, they're going to need a lot of help. And they may even get jumped by your Ohio States, your Oklahomas, because they'll have the bigger resumes by the end of the year. I believe that would trump Oregon's head-to-head over Ohio State. And speaking of those Buckeyes, I've got them checking in at number 4. The Buckeyes, another team that struggled. They struggled with Nebraska. They beat them by 9 on the road, 26-17. And now Nebraska's a team that their record doesn't really indicate how good they are. And they're not, a top 25 team by any stretch of the imagination. But Nebraska's a quality team. And Ohio State struggled with them. But Ohio State still has the resume builders ahead of them. They've got Michigan State, and then they've got the Big Ten championship game, which the Big Ten championship game, who knows who it's going to be, if it's going to be Minnesota, Purdue, Iowa, who knows. There's still several weeks left to play out in the Big Ten East. Either way, if Ohio State wins out, they're going to be overwhelming favorites in that game. So the Michigan State game is going to be, of course, the do-or-die game. That will determine whether Ohio State or Michigan State goes to the Big Ten title game. Michigan State, still has a clear path in the sense that they control their own destiny, of course, with the Ohio State game coming up. But the Buckeyes, they've got the offense. What they're doing right now, they're playing really good ball. They're one of the more consistent teams. I'll put it that way. And I had them ahead of Cincinnati, who I've got the Bearcats checking in at number 5. Cincinnati, I went on a little rant yesterday too on a short video on my YouTube channel. Cincinnati's doing this to themselves, and I've been a huge advocate for Cincinnati. I want Cincinnati to make the playoff. I've been pushing for a group of 5 team to make the college football playoff. But they keep getting in their own way. They're tripping over their own feet. They're playing with their food essentially in these AAC games. They struggle with Tulsa. They struggle with Navy. They struggle with Tulane. And the Tulane game, I kind of swept it under the rug because they struggled with them for a half. Because I said, well, Oklahoma struggled with them the whole game. So Tulane may be one of those teams that they're scrappy. They lose a lot, but they try hard. They play tough. But struggling with Navy and struggling here with Tulsa, that it took a goal line fumble. Tulsa was about to score that would have made it 28-26, and then if they go for 2, who knows? And they get that, we could be talking overtime, and even a potential loss for the Bearcats, an ugly loss. College Gameday operated from Cincinnati this week. You had all eyes on the Bearcats. They had a golden opportunity, especially with the teams above them and around them struggling, or in Michigan State's case, flat out losing. And Cincinnati did nothing to help its case. They've got to change that. This SMU team that would have been in the top 25, and I had them in the top 25 despite a loss, they lost again. They lost to Memphis. So that resume booster, that potential resume booster is off the table now. SMU's got 2 losses, one of them a bad loss. They're not going to be near the top 25. And if they get to the AAC title game and play Houston may or may not be ranked. They've got 1 loss, but if they're ranked, they're going to be somewhere in the 20 to 25 range. That's not going to be enough to boost their resumes. Other teams are going to have much more quality wins. They'll get jumped. Cincinnati at this point is going to have to be blowing out teams, Houston included, SMU included, and hope that other teams falter around them. And they got to hope also that Georgia wins the SEC, because if Bama wins or if Bama loses in a real close game, Georgia and Bama are in, and guess what? That's 2 spots already taken. So Cincinnati's at number 5, but they really got nobody else to blame but themselves. And number 6, speaking of those Spartans, I dropped them from 3 to 6. They beat Michigan. They've got the head-to-head over Michigan. Oklahoma had the bye week, so they really didn't get to impress or, expose themselves. It might have been a blessing in disguise with all these teams struggling that Oklahoma had the bye week, but they've got a tough sled of scheduling coming up. Michigan State, I got them at 6. Kenneth Walker, still a beast. Peyton Thorne's been playing pretty well. He struggled a bit against Michigan. But Michigan State to allow over 500 yards of offense to Purdue, you have got to clean that up, because you're going to play Ohio State in a few weeks. And if you're giving up 500 to Purdue, what are the Buckeyes going to do? What are the Buckeyes going to do to that defense? So they've got to clean that up. They've got to keep scoring. They've got the Ohio State game, and if they were to win that, they would make the Big Ten championship game. So in a sense, they do control their own destiny, because if Michigan State were to beat the Buckeyes and were to make the Big Ten championship game and win that, they would be in the playoff. As a 1-loss Big Ten champ, Michigan State would be fine. So Spartan fans out there, you would be okay if they run the table. Now that's a big if. They've got to clean that They've got to clean that stuff up on defense. And Ohio State, of course, going to want it just as bad. So that's going to be very interesting. The teams I've got right outside the top 10, I've got Oklahoma number 7. They were on an off week. They've got a tough schedule. Coming up with Baylor and then Oklahoma State, and maybe even a rematch with the Cowboys the week after in the Big 12 championship game. I got Michigan number 8. They come off that win over Indiana. They lost to Michigan State, so of course, if Michigan State drops down, you've got to figure the Wolverines in there somehow. So I've got them at number 8. I've got Notre Dame at number 9. They blew out Navy, which they were supposed to do in South Bend. I got the Irish at 9. They don't really control their own destiny because the lack of a conference championship game. They had one last year in the ACC title game due to COVID. They hopped into the ACC, but this year at number 9, you're probably looking at the Fiesta Bowl because they're not going to have a quality win. They're not going to have that conference championship win, that feather in their cap that other teams are going to have. So I've got them at 9, but they're not really going to be moving much further, in my opinion. And number 10, I got the Oklahoma State Cowboys. The Cowboys, have a heck of a defense, and they show flashes of brilliance on offense, but they're going to need a lot more than that when they take on Oklahoma in the Bedlam game. So they're another team that could control their own destiny. If they were to beat Oklahoma in the Bedlam game and rematch against them in the Big 12 title game and beat them again, 2 wins against Oklahoma would be pretty impressive if you ask me. So I have the Cowboys at number 10. So that's my top 10. Where I stand on my college football playoff rankings. The rankings will be released this evening. We'll have to check out, see how they shake out, how the committee views their top 6 teams. But this is Louis Longoria again with Garage Game Day Sports. Like, comment, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us at Game Day Garage on Twitter. Like us on Facebook. I will see you guys next time.